There are plenty of folks who say the gospel doesn't shape the life. The law shapes the life. That is to say, you have gospel and you have law. We mustn't confuse them, and that's right. And the gospel is what saves you. You believe in the gospel and you rest in him and you're saved. But then, what actually directs the way in which you live should be the law. Now that I'm saved, see, I turn and I say, Lord, how can I please you? And here's the law. And the law tells you how to live, and that's how you should live. And that's as far as it goes, that's actually true, that the law is still our guide. As a good Reformed Presbyterian, I believe that the law of God now, though I'm saved by grace, it doesn't mean that I don't want to please God. And how do I please God? I look at the law. That's how to please God. That's his will. However, it's actually too neat to say the gospel doesn't shape your life, only the law does. Not only doesn't it really line up, there are too many biblical texts that talk about the obedience that flows from the gospel and things like that. Not only is it not biblically warranted, but I want to show you that it actually is pretty impractical too. And here's why. Let me give you a couple of examples, biblical examples. One example I like to talk about, true story, that when I'm speaking on the integration of faith and work, I virtually always use this story. Some years ago, I saw a young woman who clearly wasn't a believer, didn't seem to know anybody else, would come in and run out at the very end of the service. She looked like a lot of other people that I knew that would do that. And one time I caught her after a service, and I said hi, and she says, well, I come in and out. I'm not sure if I believe what you guys do, but I'm intrigued. So I basically said, fine, how did you find out about Redeemer? And she told me the story. The story is she worked for a TV network in New York City, and she hadn't been with the network very long when she made a really, really bad mistake, a very bad mistake, a career-ending kind of mistake. And she thought she'd get the axe and that would be it. But her boss, who had a lot of credibility with his superiors and everyone else, went in and took the blame for her and said, I didn't train her, I didn't prep her. If you're going to be mad at somebody, be mad at me, don't fire her. Now, when he did that, he lost cred. He lost credibility. He lost social capital. No doubt about that. But obviously, she kept her job, and that was over. So she went in to try to thank him, and he says, no, don't thank me. And she wasn't satisfied, actually, with him just saying, don't even worry about it. Don't even think about it. She said, I've had bosses in the past take credit for things that I've done. That happened all the time. I've never had a boss take the blame for something I'd done. That's not human nature. The human nature is to take credit for what the people underneath me have done. But if somebody does something underneath me wrong, then you blame them. So take credit for what's good, blame them for what's bad. You took the blame. And I've never seen that before. And so, of course, he still was trying to be modest and talking. Yes, how nice. But finally, she pressed him enough, and he says, okay, I'm going to say this once, and you made me say it. I just want you to know, I'm a Christian. And my whole life is based on a man who took the blame for me. And that actually tends to shape the way in which I do everything in my life. And she said, where do you go to church? Now, let's think about this for a minute. Would you say that man basically was just doing what the law of God requires? Could you say that the law of God requires him to take the blame, maybe even sort of get himself closer to losing his own job? It wasn't his fault. It was her fault. He goes and takes the blame. Does the law of God require that? And I actually think that if you really, really think about it, yeah, if you go down deep enough into the golden rule. Because the golden rule's there. It's in the law. Treat others the way you'd want to be treated. And so you think about it. Would you want somebody to go in and really take an amazing hit to their own social credibility? Would you? So there's a sense in which the law of God would not really require that. It wouldn't be a sin for him not to go in and take the blame. On the other hand, you could say the law of God requires, but don't you see, that's not how he thought about it. He thought about it, he was being shaped by the gospel. And there is a sense in which, through the gospel, with the lenses of the gospel, he looked into the law and he saw things that you would never see otherwise. Not only that, he had a motivation. See, the law of God cannot give you the motivation. It can only give you a standard. And he had a motivation now. And as a result, he was gospel-shaped at that spot.